Florence moved to the city after growing up in a village. Life wasn't easy, so she worked as a housegirl to survive. Her life took a new turn when she met a young man in church. They became close, and with the pastor's blessing, she moved in with him. What looked like a holy union quickly became a nightmare. She thought being married to a pastor's son would mean peace and love. Instead, it was pain and humiliation. Once she got pregnant, her mother-in-law turned into a monster. Despite her condition, Florence was still forced to sweep, cook, fetch water, and run errands. Her husband watched in silence, never defending her. At night, she cried quietly, her back aching, her belly heavy. She often prayed, hoping the child inside her would bring change. But as her due date came closer, things only worsened. The day she gave birth, there was no joy in the house. Her husband didn't show up at the hospital. The only person who came was her neighbor from the church, Sister Ngozi, who brought a flask of hot pap and a wrapper. Florence gave birth to a baby girl. The nurse smiled and said, "She looks like you." Florence smiled weakly, holding her daughter close, hoping she could protect her from a world so unkind. 2 days later, she was discharged and returned home. Her stitches still fresh, her legs weak, and her body sore. Florence walked slowly into the one-bedroom apartment she shared with her husband and his mother. She hadn't even removed her slippers when her mother-in-law hissed, "Hope you didn't go and give birth to a useless girl. We need sons in this family." Florence's heart sank. She held her baby closer and kept walking. That night, she was too tired to cry. But the next night, something happened that would stay with her forever. Her husband walked into the room, locked the door, and without saying a word, told her to lie down. Florence was confused. "I just gave birth," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm your husband," he said coldly. "Don't deny me my rights." She cried. She begged. She said her body was still healing, that even standing hurt, but he didn't care. He forced himself on her while their baby lay asleep beside them. Florence sobbed silently the entire time, her body trembling, the pain unbearable. When it was over, she turned away and cried louder. That's when he said the words that shattered her. "You're not the first woman to give birth. Stop behaving like you're special. If you don't want to please me, I'll go outside and find someone who will." Florence froze. Everything inside her broke. She couldn't speak, couldn't think, couldn't even breathe. That night, as her daughter whimpered in her tiny bed, Florence stared at the ceiling, wondering if love had ever truly lived here. But that was just the beginning. Florence didn't sleep that night. Her body was in pain, but her soul was in pieces. She lay motionless until morning, pretending to sleep when her mother-in-law barged in with insults. "Lazy girl, come and boil water. Did you think giving birth makes you a queen?" Florence didn't reply. She stared at her daughter, still sleeping in her baby wrapper, and knew she had to make a decision soon. That afternoon, she quietly packed a few baby clothes into a nylon bag. She held her baby to her chest and stepped outside, not knowing where to go, but certain she could no longer stay. As she reached the gate, her husband appeared from nowhere. "Where do you think you're going?" he barked. "I need to breathe," Florence replied softly. He grabbed her arm. "Are you trying to disgrace me? You want people to think I'm a bad husband?" "I don't have to try. You are," she said, looking him dead in the eyes for the first time. He was stunned. "You're lucky I haven't told anyone what you did to me," she added. "But if you ever touch me again, I will scream so loud your father will hear me from the pulpit." Neighbors were already peeping through their windows. He let her go, embarrassed. "Go, but don't come back begging." Florence walked down the street with her baby, her heart beating fast, but for the first time, she felt free. She went to Sister Ngozi's house. The older woman opened the door and saw the tears in Florence's eyes. "You don't have to say a word," Sister Ngozi said. "Come in, my daughter." Florence lived with her for months, helping with chores and learning how to make soaps and sell foodstuffs. One day, Sister Ngozi handed her a small envelope. "It's not much," she said, "but I believe in you." Inside was 30,000 naira, just enough to start something small. Florence began frying and selling puff-puff and zobo at a local market. The first week, she made 7,000 naira. The second, she made 10,000 naira. Slowly, customers started calling her Madam Flo. One evening, while feeding her daughter, Florence's phone rang. It was her husband. She didn't answer. He called again. She blocked the number. He showed up at her market stall 2 days later, pretending to be concerned. "I've missed you and my baby," he said with a fake smile. Florence didn't smile back. "You missed control, not love," she replied. "Let's start again," he pleaded. "My mother has changed. I've changed." "You didn't change when I was bleeding and begging," she said. "You don't get a second chance to break me." He left angrily, muttering something under his breath, but Florence didn't flinch. That night, she hugged her daughter and whispered, "You saved me, and now I will save you." Months passed. She rented a single room. Her business grew. People began asking her to share her story. She told it, not as a victim, but as a woman who was once broken and rebuilt herself, piece by piece. 5 years had passed. Florence now had a small shop of her own, painted sky blue with the name Flo's Delights printed boldly above. She sold pastries, zobo, chin-chin, and homemade soap. Her daughter, Miracle, had started school, always returning with stories that melted Florence's heart. Florence had become stronger, smarter, and unshakably confident. She had built a life from scratch, one that no one could take from her. But the past has a strange way of finding its way back. One Sunday morning, after returning from church, Florence met an envelope under her shop door. She opened it slowly. It was an invitation to her ex-husband's wedding. Her hands trembled, not because she wanted him back, but because he had dared to send it. Written in pen beneath the printed card were the words, "Let bygones be bygones. I still want you in my life. Come and see how much I've changed." She tore the card in half. That night he called from an unknown number. She picked up. "Flo, please. You're still the mother of my child," he said softly. "Exactly," she replied. "The mother, not your prisoner. But I've changed." She stayed silent. "You always said you forgave. Why not now?" Florence smiled bitterly. "Forgiveness doesn't mean access. Healing means knowing what not to allow back into your life." He was quiet. "Good night," she said, and ended the call. 2 weeks later, Florence heard he didn't get married after all. The woman he was engaged to found out about his past and walked away. People started coming to Florence for advice. Single mothers, young girls, even married women trapped in shame. So she started sharing her story, first in church, then at women's meetings, then online. Her posts went viral. One day she was invited on a local radio show. Then a TV station called. Florence stood in front of the camera with poise. Dressed in a simple gown, her face glowing with quiet confidence, she told the story that once broke her. When I cried, he told me I was his wife, not a guest, that my pain didn't matter. But today I speak not for him, but for every woman who thinks her worth ends when a man stops loving her. Her voice shook slightly, but she didn't stop. You are not furniture. You are not your mistakes. You are not disposable. You are a full human being, and you deserve respect, peace, and joy. She ended with a tearful smile. That night, her daughter looked up at her and said, "Mummy, I'm proud of you." Florence bent down, hugged her tightly, and whispered, "Promise me you'll never let anyone break you, not even love." Miracle nodded, and that was enough. Florence had finally healed, not by forgetting the pain, but by turning it into power.